Ghosts of the Arab Revolutions haunt Algeria, column Ismail Numan Telci. The New Turkey. A record for the Turkish cinema in 2018. Geopolitics of the Khashoggi murder. What Turkey-German relations needs is more realpolitik and less ideology. Still no news from Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The codes of Turkey's new economic program. The NSU trial in Germany, has justice really served after 18 years? How broken deals in South Syria may affect northern Syria. The role of Turkey's Diyanet during the July 15 coup attempt. Will Turkey's activism for culture change its negative image in Europe? Contemporary Islamic Art and the Jamil Prize 2018. Art, artists, and politics, no limits for transgression? Turgut Kens ever in pursuit of wisdom through architecture. Diplomatic savagery and interview with Ferhat Unlu on the Jamal Khashoggi murder. How has Turkey championed humanitarian aid? An interview with Kiz artists. Yellow vest protests and figures. Turkey's fight against Daesh in February. Regime attacks take toll on education in Syria's Idlib. Syria's remaining Daesh terrorists hold up in regime-controlled areas. Is there a split within the AK party? Tortures, executions, and Sisi's unlimited credibility in the West. U.S. policy towards Syria, a tangled mess of bilateral negotiations. Germany's new strategy against the PKK, or just temporary steps. Algeria has been witnessing anti-government protests for over a week. President Abdellah's, the most striking feature of the protests is that they are the first kind of demonstrations that have been organized in the country since the civil war ended in 2002. The war claimed life. It is absurd for a country where the median age is 28 to be ruled by someone who is 82 and cannot function as a statesman due to his severe health conditions. So, first of all, Bouteflika's candidacy for a fifth term in office was perceived as a humiliation for Algerian people. Bouteflika has. The second important reason behind the demonstrations is that the political elites, who have ruled the country since the civil war, lost their legitimacy in the eyes of Algerians. Corruption. Finally, the majority of the Algerian youth have been increasingly engaging with social media tools that have allowed them to see developments in a regional and international sphere. Moreover, apart from this, especially young Algerians with fellow citizens in diaspora who live in European countries like France, exchange views on how their country should be governed. In addition to this, such reasons and dynamics have motivated Algerian youth to participate in demonstrations. Despite the protest, Arab nations prefer to ensure the cost of a revolution, rather than living under oppressive regimes that have been in power for decades. Algeria is not. The ongoing protest movement in Algeria is a clear reminder of the Arab revolutions period that began in Tunisia in 2010. Millions of people. One of the characteristics of the demonstrations in Algeria that are similar to the protests of the Arab revolutions is that young people, who are the main actors of the demonstrations, intensively use social media. In the country where the most important message given by the protests in Algeria is that the revolutionary wave that started in 2010 in the Arab region is still continuing despite the counter-revolutionary attempt in Egypt and the instability in Syria, Libya, and Yemen. It can be argued that February 18, 2019, January 17, 2019, January 5, 2019, September 27, 2018, March 6, 2019, March 1, 2019, March 2, 2019, March 4, 2019, March 2, 2019. About the New Turkey. Knowledge is responsibility. Copyright 2018, all rights reserved. The New Turkey is a
she a dot dot dot. Looking up, open the pot pot pot.